Hello, everybody. Welcome to Silmarillion Sunday, part 15. Yeah, that's right. I had to do it backwards. Yay. Starting off the chaos. Very strong. Thank you all so much for being here. You may notice I am in a different spot this time. And there's a reason for that. It's because I found out I could do something. Now, if you guys don't want this, let me know, but it'd have to be a general consensus. I figured out how to put the chat box in the stream. So if you all start typing now, because I've activated it, you should be able to see it soon. Or not. Oh, it was working before. What happened? Failed to load settings. Retry. Boo! Sorry, y'all. Hang on, let me try this again. Chat box, add source, new source. Chat box 2. The wife is here as well. Hello.
Hello. Chatbot's not working?
Chatbot's not working. I'm very sad. It failed to load settings.
Which one are you using?
The one through OBS streams, yeah.
Yeah, I had issues with that the first time too.
Gross. All right, apologies, y'all. I definitely thought this was going to be a cool thing, and it broke.
Well, thanks for my emoji, everybody.
Everyone's spamming the emoji. Well, glad you're all here. Thank you so much, all, for being here.
Hi, Pudding. Hi, Telvin. Hi, Poe. Hi, My Cup. Hi, Darth. Hi, Amy. Hi, Dax.
Amy's here?
Yeah.
Hey, Amy's never here.
Hi,
Well,
Belladonna.
not that
Wow.
in that she's usually got other things she's
Hi,
doing.
Flutter.
Sorry,
River's
Amy.
here too, yes.
River
Hi,
is
Balrog,
here.
babe.
I love the sunglasses.
Thank you. If you spend your little thingies, you can put sunglasses on the emotes.
That's right, you can. Someone did
I
that.
don't really know how. Hi, nice strides. Thanks. I'm gonna go eat a salad on the patio.
Oh.
Hi,
Okay.
what are you gonna do?
Can she come out with you?
She's gonna try and eat my soup.
Oh, okay. Well, that's
I'll save my soup and take my salad.
okay. Okay, sounds good. All right. Also, Amy, sorry, I didn't mean to call you out specifically. It is just that it's nice having you here. This is what I mean.
You a busy mama.
She is a busy mama, I think. What's up?
I struggle with life.
You struggle with life. I understand. Failed to load settings. Boo. Well, I'm really sorry. The chat box thing is not working. I don't want to totally end the stream right now, but I will definitely try and do something a little bit later on to fix it. All right, let's bring us back here. That way you can see the kitchen in all its glory.
Oh, it's actually not that bad right now.
Oh, that's true. We did clean off the counter. Yeah.
My iced coffee, Jay chilling over there. And we are not sponsored by Salad Works.
Honey, people are putting the sunglasses over your emote. Thank you all.
My one that has a hat.
Yes, your water bottle.
The gnome wife on Etsy makes dice bags, and her little logo is a D20 with a witch's hat on it.
So welcome to Silmarillion Sunday. Today, before we get into the YouTube stuff, today may be a little bit shorter in terms of reading, but we may still do like a longer stream. Potentially the Lord of the Rings Mad Libs if we have time. It was a lot of fun last time. I can't not. What time is it? Oh, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So this... Yeah, that's why I said I wanted to put a hoodie on. It's cold outside.
Just my feet.
Oh, just your feet. Okay. So, today's reading is probably only going to be 162 minus 154. 5, 6. So this one may only be about 7 pages, unless we can go back and start the YouTube part at the beginning, if people want to reread the beginning of this chapter, because it is one of the best parts of the chapter. For those that don't know, Beren and Luthien is the next chapter. It is the only chapter in the Silmarillion I have openly wept at, and it is also going to be like a potentially 2.5 hour stream. However, We will not be streaming next Sunday. Just want to let all of you know, next Sunday is going to be a day where I have something else that I have to do in my personal life. Ooh, did not mean to move myself there. Sorry. So we will be taking a week off and then coming back for Baron and Luthien. In the meantime, I am actually going to go live on Twitch. Or, I'm sorry, on TikTok. Because that is more or less how new people find this, and we always want to add more people into our accidental book club. Balrog. Whoa, okay, sorry. I forget that sound automatically starts playing. All right. Balrog, babe, you're getting the I Am No Man shirt. Nice. Your toddler and you are getting matching ones. No way. That's amazing. That's amazing. Okay, let's get this going. Reading the Silmarillion Twitch. Oh. Twitch -- reading the Silmarillion. Oh, it's one character too short. That's all right. Okay, let's go live on TikTok and get this whole thing started. Sorry, we got a little bit of a late start today. All right. Kia, you just got your I Am No Man? Nice. Oh, Amy, you got it too? Awesome. Very exciting. So I don't know if you all noticed, I didn't post nearly as many obscure Lord of the Rings facts this week because I had another completely unrelated video go viral for the Panic at the Disco musical that I wrote. Didn't expect that to happen. I've had that idea in my head for about 2.5 years, probably longer because it's been festering there. But yeah, definitely did not expect to have that happen. And happy that it did, you know, but I'm always very cognizant of posting videos while one video is doing very well, because it does kind of cut down on the views based on my experience in the algorithm. So we kind of held off this week, and we're back now. So also, welcome to the folks on TikTok. If you are interested, I am doing a live reading over on Twitch. Sorry, totally blanked there for a second. So if anybody likes Panic at the Disco, let me know in the comments below. Always happy to answer any Panic at the Disco questions. Which is just a weird thing to say. Okay, so I think we are going to go ahead and get started. I do have a question from chat, which I don't know if, can I do a poll? I think there's a way. Did I figure out the right way to poll /poll? Open a setup menu to create a poll /poll. Should we start from the beginning of chapter 18? Did I do it right? Oh, I did. Should we start from beginning of chapter 18? Yes. No, just want to get some duration. Let's do it for the next minute. This is so cool. I've never done this before. So we are gonna be doing a thing where you can vote in the poll to decide whether or not we do from the beginning of chapter 16, which is like an extra 2 or 3 pages, but it's also a really good part of the book. So it would basically be a reread, but I want to get everyone's sense on whether or not we should. That's a lot of yeses. Okay. So I will, Darth, I will say this again in the YouTube part, but we are going to start on chapter 18, and it looks like the general consensus is that we should start from the beginning of chapter 18 over again. What's the time where I am? I am on the East Coast, so it is 12:11 where I am. You like that I'm a Lord of the Rings and Panic at the Disco channel? I am a man of many facets. Okay. Yes, I really like both. All right, so the general consensus is that we should restart chapter 18. It's not terribly much longer. I'll kind of not speed through it, but I won't provide as much commentary because this is a pretty important part. Also, My Cup, thank you for coming. Appreciate you dropping by. Potaters. Well, if we didn't already call ourselves Chilmarills, we would have called ourselves Potaters. And I'm actually kind of upset that we haven't yet. Thanks, My Cup. Yes, I am also live on TikTok. You're in New Zealand. It's 4:12 a.m. My goodness. Thank you for watching. I did not expect anyone to be up at 4 a.m., but much appreciated. Okay, cool. So yeah, let's get through this and let's Benny Min. Thank you. Benny Min just gifted another 5 tier subs. Tier 1 subs, gift subs. Thank you. That is very kind of you. Very kind of you indeed. I'm not sure why the notifications are not showing up. They should. And now it's at 6. Goodness gracious. Thank you. Okay. I'm not sure why these aren't showing up. It looks like this stream is having problems with it. Like, I can't open chat box. I can't do a bunch of things. But thank you. It means a great deal. And that support is... Oh, I disappeared. That support is very much appreciated and does go a long way to help this channel. So, thank you. Okay. We are going to go ahead and get started with chapter 18, which is just about 10 pages. No, yeah, 11 pages. All right, here we go. All right, so we'll do the YouTube part again. 3, 2, 1. Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Silmarillion Sunday, part 15. If you have not already seen it, I recommend you go back and watch the other 14 parts of our read-through of the Silmarillion with my commentary to make it a little bit less confusing, because it's a confusing book. If you are interested in joining a live stream for this, we are live every Sunday at noon Eastern Time. I do answer questions from the chat, and we have a lot of fun at our Accidental Book Club. If you've never seen an episode before, I do recommend you go back and watch them again, but if you like to be dropped in the middle of a story, this is a pretty good place to start because we start at a very action-packed filled scene. When we last left off for chapter 17 of The Coming of Men into the West, men were introduced. For those that have already seen or read the second part of chapter 17 and the first part of chapter 18, you can go ahead and skip a little bit ahead. I may also start the YouTube video when we... where we start. Haven't decided that yet. That's my wife, by the way. All right. So we are going to start again on chapter 18, which only adds about another 3 pages because a lot of people are here for the first time, and I want them to hear the important part of this. So we'll see how that goes. All right. Chapter 18 of the Ruin of Valerian and the Fall of Fingolfin. Now Fingolfin, king of the north and high king of the Noldor, seeing that his people were become numerous and strong, and that men had allied to them were many and valiant, pondered once more an assault on Angband. For he knew that they lived in danger while the circle of the siege was incomplete, and Morgoth was free to labor in his deep mines, devising what evils none could foretell ere he should reveal them. Ere means before, E-R-E. Also, Kiba, thank you for the follow, and Black Veil Pixie, thank you for the follow. Therefore, they were little disposed to hearken... Oh, excuse me, I missed a chapter. But because the land was fair and their kingdom wide, most of the Noldor were content with things as they were, trusting them to last, and slow to begin an assault, in which many surely must perish, where it was in victory or in defeat. Therefore, they were little disposed to hearken to Fingolfin, and the sons of Feanor at that time least of all. Among the chieftains of the Noldor, Angrod and Aegnor alone were of like mind with the king, for they dwelt in regions whence Thangorodrim could be descried. So Thangorodrim is the big tower that, or the mountain range, basically, that Morgoth lives underneath. And the threat of Morgoth was present to their thought. Thus the designs of Fingolfin came to naught, and the land had peace yet for a while. But when 6 generations of men after Beor and Marach were not yet come to full manhood, it being then 400 years and 5 and 50. I love how Tolkien does numbers. 400 years and 5 and 50 since the coming of Fingolfin, the evil befell that he had long dreaded, and yet more dire, sudden than his darkest fears. For Morgoth had long prepared his force in secret, while ever the malice of his heart grew greater, and his hatred of the Noldor more bitter. And he desired not only to end his foes, but to destroy also and defile the lands that they had taken and made fair. And it is said that his hate overcame his counsel, so that if he had but endured to wait longer until his designs were full, then the Noldor would have perished utterly. But on his part he esteemed too lightly the valor of the elves, and the men he had not yet, and of men he took yet no account. There came a time of winter, when night was dark and without moon, and the wide plain of Ardgarland stretched dim beneath the cold stars. Actually, you know what? Where is it? Yeah, why don't I do this? So this is the map that I used ages ago to kind of give you an idea of things that are about to be destroyed. I want you to pay special attention to most of the places in the north. There came a time of winter, when night was dark and without moon, and the wide plain of Ardgarland, which is in the north middle part, also labeled Anfauglith. It's up that way. The wide plain of Ardgarland stretched dim beneath the cold stars. From the hill forts of the Noldor to the feet of Thangorodrim, the watchfires burned low, and the guards were few. On the plains, few were waking in the camps of the horsemen of Hithlum. Hithlum is on the left of the map. Then suddenly, Morgoth sent forth great rivers of flame that ran down swifter than Balrogs from Thangorodrim, and poured all over all the poisonous hues, and the fumes of them stank upon the air, and was deadly. Thus Ardgarland perished, and the fire devoured its grasses, and it became a burned and desolate waste, full of choking dust, barren and lifeless. Therefore its name was changed, and it was called Anfauglith. Hey, look at that. They're both on the map. The gasping dust. Many charred bones had their roofless graves. For many of the Noldor perished in that burning, who were caught by the running flames and could not fly to the hills. The heights of Dorthonion and Eredwethrin held back the fiery torrents, but their woods upon the slopes that looked towards Angband were kindled, and the smoke wrought confusion among the defenders. Thus began the fourth of the great battles, Dagor Bragolach, the Battle of Sudden Flame. In the front of that fire came Glaurung the Golden, father of dragons, in his full might, and in his train were Balrogs, and behind them came the black armies of the orcs in multitudes, such as the Noldor had never seen before or imagined. And they assaulted the fortress of the Noldor, and broke the leaguer about Angband, and slew wherever they found them, the Noldor and their allies, grey elves and men. Many of the stoutest of the foes of Morgoth were destroyed in the first days of the war, bewildered and dispersed, and unable to muster their strength. War ceased not wholly ever again in Valerian, but the Battle of Sudden Flame is held to have ended with the coming of spring, when the onslaught of Morgoth grew less. Thus ended the siege of Angband, and the foes of Morgoth were scattered and sundered one from another. The most part of the grey elves fled south and forsook the northern war. Many were received into Doriath. You'll remember Doriath is that thing in the very center of that map. And the kingdom and strength of Thingol grew greater in that time. Remember, Thingol is the guy with the magical wife who's got the force field around all of Doriath, so nothing can go in there, and he doesn't let anybody out. He's kind of a hard head, but we love him anyway. Others took refuge in the fortresses of the sea and in Nargothrond, which is, where's Nargothrond? Oh god, I can't find Nargothrond. I'm not sure where Nargothrond is, I'm going to be totally honest. Chat, help me out here. And some fled to land and hid themselves in Osiriand, or passing the mountains wandered homeless in the wilds. And rumors of the war and the breaking of the siege reached the ears of men in the east of Middle-earth. The sons of Finarfin bore most heavily the brunt of the assault, and Agrod and Aegnor were slain. Beside them fell Bregolas, lord of the house of Beor, and a great part of the warriors of that people. But Barahir, the brother of Bregolas, was in the fighting further west, near the pass of Sirion. There King Finrod Felagund, hastening from the south, was cut off from his people and surrounding with a small company in the fen of Serek, and he would have been slain or taken. But Barahir came up with the bravest of his men and rescued him, and made a wall of spears about him, and they cut their way out of the battle with great loss. Thus Felagund escaped, and returned to his deep fortress in Nargothrond. He swore an oath of abiding friendship and aid in every need to Barahir. This is important. Hey, newsflash, hey, this is important. This oath. And in token of his vow, he gave Barahir his ring. Barahir was now by right lord of the house of Beor, and he returned to Dorthonion. But most of his people fled from their homes and took refuge in the fastness of Hithlum. Again, Hithlum is that northwestern corner of the map. Also, to those asking, I am on chapter 18. So great was the onslaught of Morgoth that Fingolfin and Fingon could not come to the aid of the sons of Finarfin, and the hosts of Hithlum were driven back with great loss to the fortress of Eredwethrin, and these were hardly defended against the orcs. Before the walls of Ethel-Sirion fell Hador the Golden-Haired, defending the rearguard host of his lord Fingolfin, being then 66 years of age. And with him fell Gundor, his young son, pierced by many arrows, and they were mourned by the elves. Then Galdor the Tall took the lordship of his father, and because of the strength and height of the shadowy mountains which withstood the torrent of the fire, and by the valor of the elves and men of the north, which neither Orc nor Balrog could yet overcome, Hithlum remained unconquered, a threat upon the flank of Morgoth's attack. But Fingolfin was sundered from his kinsmen by a sea of foes. For the war had gone ill with the sons of Feanor. And remember, Hithlum, right? I'll do a little bit there. Hithlum is right here, up top above me, and then the sons of Feanor are just north here, in Lothon and the March of Maethros and Himlad and Thargaryen, a little bit of East Beleriand. For the war had gone ill with the sons of Feanor, and well nigh all the east marches were taken by assault. The pass of Aglon was forced, though with great cost to the host of Morgoth, and Kelegorm and Curufin, being defeated, fled south and west by the marches of Doriath, and coming at last to Nargothrond, sought harbor with Finrod Felagund. Thus it came to pass that their peoples swelled in the strength of Nargothrond. I gotta find Nargothrond really quick. It's bothering me that I don't know where it is. Left of Doriath? Someone say left of Doriath? Falas. Sorry, I have to tilt my head to find it. Okay, cool. Thank you. Also, Skeleton Fist, thank you for the follow. All right, here we go. And the orcs, here we go. Sorry. Maethros did deeds of surpassing valor, and the orcs fled before his face. For since his torment upon Thangorodrim, his spirit burned like a white fire within, and he was as one that returns from the dead. Thus the great fortress upon the hill of Himring could not be taken. And many of the most valiant that remained, both of the people of Darthonion and of the East Marches, rallied there with Maethros. And for a while he closed once more upon the pass of Eglon, so that the orcs could not enter Valerian by that road. But they overwhelmed the riders of the people of Feanor upon Lothan. You'll remember, Lothan, just north of me, here. So that's where we're at right now. For Glaurung came thither, and passed through the Maglor's Gap, and destroyed all the lands between the arms of Gelion. And the orcs took the fortress upon the west slopes of Mount Rayrir, and ravaged all Thargelion, the lands of Caranthir. And they defiled Lake Helivorn. Thence they passed over Gelion with fire and terror, and came far into East Beleriand. Maglor joined Maethros upon Himring, but Caranthir fled and joined the remnant of his people to the scattered folk of the hunters, Amrod and Amras, and they retreated and passed Ramdal in the south. Again, I put this map up here as kind of a reminder, but you do not need to remember all of these parts. Just know for the most part that almost everything south of that mountain range up top is basically gone, besides Hithlum. Now news came to Hithlum that Darthonion was lost, and the sons of Finarfin overthrown, and that the sons of Feanor were driven from their lands. Then Fingolfin beheld, as it seems to him, the utter ruin of the Noldor, and the defeat beyond redress of their houses, and filled with wrath and despair, he mounted upon I had trouble with this last week. Rachalor. Rachallor. His horse, his great horse, and rode forth alone, and none might restrain him. He passed over Dor Newfauglith like a wind amid the dust, and all that beheld his onset fled in amaze, thinking that Orome himself was come. For a great madness of rage was upon him, so that his eyes shone like the eyes of the Valar. Thus he came alone to Angban's gates, and sounded his horn, and smote once more upon the brazen door, and challenged Morgoth to come forth in single combat. And Morgoth came. I'm going to switch back over to my bigger portion of the screen because I'm going to be making eye contact with you a lot on this one. This is my favorite part of the book. That was the last time in those years that he passed the doors of his stronghold, and it is said that he took the challenge not willingly. For though his might was greatest of all things in the world, alone of the Valar he knew fear. But he could not now deny the challenge before the face of his captains, for the rocks rang with the shrill music of Fingolfin's horn, and his voice came keen and clear into the depths of Angband. And Fingolfin named Morgoth Craven, and Lord of Slaves. Therefore Morgoth came, climbing slowly from his subterranean throne, and he issued forth clad in black armor. And he stood before the king like a tower, iron-crowned, and his vast shield, stable, unblazoned, cast a shadow over him like a storm cloud. But Fingolfin beamed beneath it as a star, for his mail was overlaid with silver, and his blue shield was set with crystals, and he drew his sword Ringiel that glittered like ice. Then Morgoth, did I miss it? Here we go. Then Morgoth hurled aloft Grond, the hammer of the underworld, and swung it down like a bolt of thunder. But Fingolfin sprang aside, and Grond rent the mighty pits of the earth, whence smoke and fire darted. Many times Morgoth essayed to smite him, and each time Fingolfin leapt away, as a lightning shoots from under the dark clouds. And he wounded Morgoth with 7 wounds, and 7 times Morgoth gave a cry of anguish, whereat the host of Angband fell upon their face in dismay, and the cries echoed in the Northlands. But at the last the king grew weary, and Morgoth bore his shield down upon him. Thrice he was crushed to the knee, and thrice arose again, bore up his broken shield and stricken helm. But the earth was rent and pitted about him, and he stumbled and fell backward before the feet of Morgoth. And Morgoth set his foot upon his neck, and the weight of it was like a fallen hill. Yet with his last and desperate stroke, Fingolfin hewed the foot with Ringiel, and the blood gushed forth, and the smoking and filled the pits of Grond. Thus died Fingolfin, High King of the Noldor, most proud and valiant of the elven kings of old. The orcs made no boast of that duel at the gates, neither do the elves sing of it, for their sorrow is too deep. Yet the tale of it is remembered still, for Thorondor, king of the eagles, brought their tidings to Gondolin and to Hithlum far off. And Morgoth took the body of the elven king and broke it, and would cast it to his wolves, but Thorondor came hasting from the eyries and the peaks of the Crisegrim, which is the mountain range, and stooped upon Morgoth and marred his face. The rushing of the wings of Thorondor was like the noise of the wind of Manwë, and seized the body in his mighty talons, and soaring suddenly above the darts of the orcs, he bore the king away, and he laid him upon the mountain top that looked from the north upon the hidden valley of Gondolin. And Turgon, coming, built a high cairn over his father. No orc dared ever after to pass over the mountains of Fingolfin, or draw near his tomb, basically, until the doom of Gondolin was come to treachery, and treachery was born among his kin. Morgoth went ever halted of 1 foot after that day, and the pain of his wound could not be healed, and in his face was the scar that Thorondor made. Great was the lamentation in Hithlum when the fall of Fingolfin became known, and Fingon in sorrow took the lordship of the house of Fingolfin and the kingdom of the Noldor, but his young son Eärenion, who was after named Gil-galad, was sent to the Havens. All right, I am going to pause there and take any questions. If anybody is interested over on TikTok, I am doing a live reading on Twitch. With this much better microphone, I am also taking questions from my TikTok or from my Twitch chat. If you have questions about anything that just happened. Now, I have actually decided, and I decided in the reading, I am going to start the YouTube portion here, because I liked the version I did last week better, so I'm going to restart that YouTube portion here, because I liked that take a little bit better. So we're going to start here. All right. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask it in the Twitch chat. TikTok folks, go ahead and head on over if you feel so inclined. In the meantime, if anyone has questions, feel free to ask. That is one of my favorite battles in the all Tolkien legendarium. He writes a lot of great battles. Some of them he kind of skips over and does more of a grand scale, but this one is very intimate, right? It's a one-on-one fight with a sword and a giant hammer. Can I read it in Elvish now? Or can I read in Elvish now? No, I cannot, sadly. Came here from TikTok and subbed. Skeleton Fist, thank you. Much appreciated. Thank you. All right. I'm going to keep going then. All right. So let me do the YouTube portion again. 3, 2. Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Silmarillion Sunday, Part 15. If you're just joining us, we are starting in the middle of Chapter 18 of The Ruin of Valerian in J.R.R. Tolkien's book, The Silmarillion. If you've never seen an episode before, I do recommend you go back and watch the other 14 parts. But if you do like being dropped in the middle of the story, having no idea what's going on and learning along the way, this is a pretty good part to do it. As a recap of what happened last time we read about the coming of men into Valerian, which is where all of the elves are. So the elves and the dwarves have a pretty good relationship so far. And then men, humans, I should say, are coming in. And they've got this sort of working relationship, and they realize that it's basically more reinforcements against Morgoth. However, in realizing this, there are a couple of people that say we could just take Morgoth on now, but it falls on deaf ears. The High King of the Elves, Fingolfin, in Middle-earth in this first age, is basically like trying to get everybody to fight, and no one's doing it. So there is a great attack that Morgoth basically breaks the siege of the Silmarillion, or excuse me, breaks the siege of, let me try that again. I'm so scatterbrained right now. Let me try this YouTube part again. This is the beauty of doing it live. I can just do it again for YouTube. Hang on. 3, 2. Hello, YouTube. Welcome to Silmarillion Sunday, Part 15. I am Don Marshall72, the obscure Lord of the Rings facts guy. If you've never been to Silmarillion Sunday before, this is where I read J.R.R. Tolkien's book, The Silmarillion. We are starting today in the middle of Chapter 18. If you've never seen one of my videos before, I do recommend you go back and check out the other 14 parts. It is a lot to watch, but it might be a little bit confusing. However, if you do like being dropped in the middle of the action and figuring out who does what along the way, this is a really good place to start. We are starting in the middle of Chapter 18 of the Ruin of Valerian. I am currently on page 154 of this version if you are following along in the book. If you are interested in being part of a live stream, I do these live streams on my Twitch channel every Sunday at noon Eastern Time. We also have live streams every Wednesday and Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, but they are not book-related. Last Friday, we played Mad Libs for Lord of the Rings, and it was wonderful. Probably going to put that on YouTube as well, because it was so great. Okay, so we are going to get started in the middle of Chapter 18. As you'll remember, the beginning of Chapter 18, we had a very major character death. Spoilers, if you haven't already, this is a pretty big one, so leave now if you don't want to be spoiled. We lost the High King of the Elves in the First Age, Fingolfin, and he died in maybe the most valiant way an elf could. One-on-one single combat against Sauron's master Morgoth. The ramifications of his death are huge, and the next portion of this chapter, which is only about 6 or 7 more pages. So if this episode seems a little shorter, that's why. It's because we're starting in the middle. The ramifications of this are huge, and so we are going to read about that. Let's begin. Now Morgoth's power overshadowed the Northlands, but Barahir, who is the man that helped Finrod Felagund, the elven prince, escape. He would not flee, and remained contesting the land foot by foot with his enemies. Then Morgoth pursued his peoples to death, until few remained, and all the forests of the northward slopes of that land was turned little by little into a region of such dread and dark enchantment that even the orcs would not enter it unless need drove them, and it was called Delduath and Tower Nufuin, the forest under the nightshade. And you know what? Here's what I'll do just to give a brief recap. Let's bring the map back out. We had the map a few weeks ago. Just as a quick recap for anyone watching on YouTube, because we did this live during the Twitch after. But just to recap, when Morgoth unleashes his forces, everything above me in Anfauglith and Ardgarlan, gone. All of this here in Lothon, gone. And most of the March of Maethros and Himlod and a lot down here. Really the places that that are still around are Hithlum, over here in the west as sort of like a flanking, and Doriath, as well as a little bit of east and west Beleriand over there. But there's not much left of the northern portions. All right, I'm going to just set myself back up here and keep going. That's just kind of as a refresher. The trees that grew there after the burning were black and grim, and their roots were tangled, groping in the dark like claws, and those who strayed among them became lost and blind, and were strangled or pursued to madness by phantoms of terror. At last, so desperate was the case of Barahir, that Eldamir, the man-hearted, let me try that again. At last, so desperate was the case of Barahir, that Eldamir the man-hearted, his wife, whose mind was rather of flight beside her son and husband than to fight beside her husband and children, that, oh my god, sorry, totally lost this. Let me try this one more time. At last, so desperate was the case of Barahir, that Eldamir the many-hearted, his wife, whose mind was rather to fight beside her son and her children than to flee, gathered together all the women and children that were left, and gave arms to those that would bear them. And she led them into the mountains that lay behind, and so by perilous paths, until they came at last, with loss and misery, to Brethiel. Some were there received among the Haladin, which is a group of men. But some passed over the mountains to Dorlomin, and the people of Galdor, Hador's son, and among those were Rhine, daughter of Belegund and Morwen, whose name was Eldawer, that is, Elfsheen, daughter of Baragund. There's a lot of names here. I'll tell you if they're important and you need to remember them. But none ever saw again the men that they had left, for these were slain one by one, until at last only 12 remained to Barahir, Beren his son, and Baragund and Belegund his nephews, the sons of Bregolas, and 9 faithful servants of his house, whose names were long remembered in the songs of the Noldor. Radruin and Daruin they were, Dagnir and Ragor, and Gildor, and Gorlim the unhappy, and Arthad, and Urthel, and Hathadir, the young outlaws without hope they became, a desperate band they could not escape, and would not yield, for their dwellings were destroyed, and their wives and children captured, slain, or fled. From Hithlam there came neither news nor help, and Barahir and his men were hunted like wild beasts, and they retreated to the barren highlands of the forest, and wandered among the tarn and rocky moors of that region, furthest from the spies and spells of Morgoth. Their bed was the heather, and their roof the cloudy sky. So we're kind of learning about this group of men that are, I say men because it literally is just guys, or males, here. And the reason that it is so confusing is because Tolkien loves names, and he just wanted to list them one by one, which is exactly what he did. You don't really need to remember any of this with the exception of Barahir and his son Beren. That's it. So just remember those two. The rest, put it out of your mind. Well, I mean, you don't have to put it out of your mind, but it's not really necessary to remember it. For nigh on 2 years after the Dagor Bragolok, the Noldor still defended the western pass about the sources of Sirion, for the power of Ulmo, which is one of the lesser gods from Tolkien's universe that is basically Poseidon. He is one of the ones that doesn't quite give up on the humans and the elves in their fight against Morgoth. For nigh on 2 years after the Dagor Bragolok, the Noldor still defended the western pass about the shores of Sirion, for the powers of Ulmo was still in that water, and Minas Tirith withstood the orcs. Not that Minas Tirith, another one. There are two. But at length, after the fall of Fingolfin, Sauron, greatest and most terrible of the servants of Morgoth, who in the Sindarin tongue was named Gorthaur, came against Orodreth, the warden of the tower upon Tol Sirion. Sauron was become now a sorcerer of dreadful power, master of shadows and of phantoms, foul in wisdom, cruel in strength, missaping what he touched, twisting what he ruled, lord of werewolves. His dominion was torment. He took Minas Tirith by assault, for a cloud of of fear fell upon those that defended it, and Orodreth was driven out, and fled to Nargothrond. There, Sauron made it into a watchtower for Morgoth, a stronghold of evil and menace, and the fair isle of Tol Sirion became accursed, and it was called Tower in Gorth... Oh, I'm going to mess that one up, hang on. And it was called Tol in Gaurhoth, the Isle of Werewolves. No living creature could pass through that veil that Sauron did not espy from the tower where he sat. So it's like basically a giant watchtower, and Sauron is like, but without the eye part, right? It's literally just, he's there. And Morgoth now held the western pass, and his terror filled the fields and woods of Beleriand. Beyond Hithlum, he pursued his foes relentlessly, and he searched out their hiding places, and took their strongholds one by one. The orcs, growing ever bolder, wandering at will and wide, coming down Sirion in the west and Kelon in the east. And they encompassed Doriath, and they harried the lands, so that beasts and birds fled before them, and silence and desolation spread steadily in the north. Many of the Noldor and the Sindar they took captive, and led to Angband, and made them thralls. Thralls is another word for, like, slave-like creatures. Excuse me, I lost my place. Many of the Noldor and Sindar they took captive and led to Angband, and made thralls, forcing them to use their skill and knowledge in service of Morgoth. And Morgoth sent out his spies, and they were clad in false forms, and deceit was in their speech. They made lying promises of rewards, and with cunning words sought to rouse fear and jealousy among the peoples, accusing their kings and chieftains of greed and of treachery one to another. And because of the curse of the kinslaying at Alqualonde, these lies were often believed. And indeed, as the time darkened, they had a measure of truth, for the hearts and minds of the elves of Beleriand became clouded with despair. But ever the Noldor feared the most the treachery of those of their own kin, who had been thralls of Angband, for Morgoth used some of these for his evil purposes, and feigning to give them liberty, sent them abroad. But their will were chained to his, and they strayed only to come back to him again. Therefore, if any of the captives escaped in truth and returned to their own people, they had little welcome, and wandered alone, outlawed, and desperate. To put this in perspective, right, think about this. You have a family member that has been captured by Morgoth or by Sauron, and they work as a slave for years, and they manage to escape. But there are other slaves that also manage to escape, and those slaves turned out to be evil, or in some way mind-controlled by Morgoth or by Sauron. And maybe they spoke in praise of Sauron, or said things that were horrible about the elves or the men, or badly about, their family, or how they should maybe side with Sauron or Morgoth. Think about what that's going to do to the people that do manage to escape and do come back and are pure of heart. It's a corruption from the inside. And no Falcon and the Winter Soldier spoilers in chat, please, but I do kind of reference this to a Marvel's Avengers thing. Think about what Zemo, the guy in Captain America Civil War, tried to do to the Avengers. He tried to destroy them from the inside, make them go against one another, create a concept or an idea that maybe we have to pick sides in all of this, and maybe all of us as a group don't agree, and maybe that drives a wedge between people, and it works. And that's the important part of it. So let's continue, but keep that in mind, because that's what's happening right now. To men, Morgoth feigned pity. If any would hearken to his messages, saying that their let me try that again. To men Morgoth feigned pity, if any would hearken to his messages, saying that their woes came only of their servitude to the rebel Noldor. But at the hands of the rightful lord of Middle-earth they would get honor, and a just reward of valor, if they would leave rebellion. But few men of the three houses of the Edain would give ear to him, not even were they brought to the torment of Angband. Therefore Morgoth pursued them with hatred, and he sent his messengers over the mountains. It is told that at this time the swarthy men came first into Valerian. Swarthy is capitalized, so they are important. Some were already secretly under the dominion of Morgoth, and came at his call, but not all, for the rumors of Valerian and of its lands and waters, of its riches and waters, were now far and wide. And the wandering feet of men were ever set westward in those days. These men were short and broad, long and strong in arms, and their skins were swart or sallow, and their hair was dark with their eyes. Their houses were many, and some had greater likings for the dwarves of the mountains than of the elves. But Maethros, knowing the weakness of the Noldor and the Edain, whereas the pits of Angband seemed to hold a store inexhaustible and ever renewed, made alliance with these new-come men, and gave his friendship to the greatest of their chieftains, Bor and Ulfang. And Morgoth was well content, for this was as he designed. The sons of Bor were Borlad, and Borak, and Borthad, and they followed Maethros and Maglor, and cheated the hope of Morgoth, and were faithful. The sons of Ulfang the Black were Ulfast, and Ulwarth, and Uldor the Accused, and they followed Caranthir, and swore allegiance to him, and proved faithless. There was small love between the Edain and the Easterlings, and they met seldom, for the newcomers abode long in East Beleriand. But Hador's folk were shut in Hithlum, and Beor's house was well nigh destroyed. The people of Halath were at first untouched by the northern wars, for they dwelt to the southward in the forest of Brethiel. But now there was battle between them and the invading orcs, for they were stout-hearted men, and would not lightly forsake the woods that they loved. And amid the tales of defeat that came of that time, the deeds of the Haladin were remembered in honor. But after the taking of Minas Tirith and orcs came... But after the taking of Minas Tirith, the orcs came through the western pass, and would have ravaged even the mouths of Sirion. But Halmir, lord of the Haladin, sent swift word to Thingol, for he had friendship with the elves that guarded the borders of Doriath. Then Beleg Strongbow, important character alert, Beleg Strongbow, important character alert. Then Beleg Strongbow, chief of the march wardens of Thingol, brought great strength of the Sindar armed with axes into Brethiel, issuing from the deeps of the forest of Halmir. Halmir and Beleg took an orc legion at unawares and destroyed it. Therefore the black tide out of the north was stemmed in that region, and the orcs dared not cross the Taglin, which is a river, for many years after. The people of Haleth dwelt yet in watchful peace in the forest of Brethiel, and behind their guard the kingdom of Nargothrond had respite and mustered its strength. So there's a little bit of Easterlings reference here. There's also another reference to some of the maybe not all humans are bad in this case. Strongbow, no, Tice, not the founder of the delicious hard apple cider. This is a different Strongbow. But, maybe their ancestors, Tolkien originally meant for this to be like a found history, so who knows? All right. At this time, Horan and Huwor, important character alert. Bing, bing, bing. Sorry, I feel like I should have some sort of thing that pops up. Horan and Huwor are important characters. At this time, Horan and Huwor, the sons of Galdor of Dor-Lomin, were dwelling with the Haladin, for they were akin. In the days before the Dagor Bragolak, those two houses of the Edain were joined at a great feast, where Galdor and Glorredel, the children of Hador Goldenhead, were wedded to Haloth and Haldir. Different Haldir, not the elf from the Two Towers. The children of Halmir, the Lord of Haladin. There's going to be a lot of names. You can ignore most of them. I will tell you if they are important. Thus it was that the sons of Galdor were fostered in Brethiel by Haldir, their uncle, according to the custom of the men at that time. And they were both in the battle with those orcs, even Huwor, for he would not be restrained, though he was but 13 years old. Yeah. And being with a company that was cut off from the rest, they were pursued to the fords of the Brechiach. I think that's how you pronounce it. Brithichiach. Sorry, no. Brithichiach. Brechiach. That's it. And there they would have been taken or slain but for the power of Ulmo. Then that was still strong in Sirion. A mist arose from the river and hid them from their enemies, and they escaped over the Brechiach to Dimbar, and wandered among the hills beneath the sheer walls of the Crisegrim, until they were bewildered in the deceits of that land, and knew not the way to go or to return. There Thorondor espied them, and he sent 2 of his eagles to their aid. Remember, Thorondor is the giant eagle. And the eagles bore them up, and brought them beyond the encircling mountains, to the secret vale of Tumladin, and the hidden city of Gondolin, which no man yet had seen. Now remember, Gondolin is, let me bring the map up actually. I love having this on standby. Gondolin, the map, on the map, right, is, shoot, where am I looking? Hang on, let me make this a little bigger, because I think I know where it is. Shoot, where's Gondolin? There we go. Okay, so Gondolin is, if I move myself, just above me. That is a hidden city encircling a bunch of mountains that is basically, no one's ever been there. A bunch of elves live there, and no one's been there for quite a while. So Gondolin is this hidden city that no human has ever been to, let alone, a dwarf. So, let's come back in. All right. Where did I leave off? There, Turgon the king received them well, when he learned of their kin, for messages and dreams had come to him from Sirion, from the seas from Ulmo, Lord of Waters. Ulmo's got a thing for, sending people dreams. I'll start that part again. There Turgon the king received them well, when he learned of their kin, for messages and dreams had come to him, up Sirion, from the sea, from Ulmo, Lord of Waters, warning him of woe to come, and counseling him to deal kindly with the sons of those houses of Hador. You're fine. You're fine. The wife is cooking. That's what you hear. Horan and Huwor dwelt as guests in the king's house for well nigh a year, and it is said in this time that Horan learned much of the lore of the elves, and understood also something of the counsels and purpose of the king. For Turgon took great liking to the sons of Galdor, and spoke much with them, and he wished indeed to keep them in Gondolin out of love, and not only for his law, that no stranger, be he elf or man, human, who found his way to the secret kingdom and looked upon the city, should ever depart again, until the king could open his leaguer, and the hidden peoples shall come forth. What's up?
Look at this tiny bottle of balsamic glaze.
Oh my god, we interrupt this reading for this adorable bottle of balsamic glaze. Is that from the HelloFresh?
Yeah.
This video is not sponsored by HelloFresh, but HelloFresh, if you are watching, it's so tiny. Ladies and gentlemen, my Nat 20 wife. Love you.
Love you.
You're adorable.
Peace.
Oh my god. Okay, anyway, back to the readings. But Horan and Huwor desired to return to their own people and share in the wars and griefs that now beset them. And Horan said to Torgon, Lord, we are but mortal men, and unlike the Eldar. They may endure for long years awaiting battle with their enemies in some far distant day. But for us, the time is short, and our hopes and strengths soon wither. Moreover, we did not find the road to Gondolin, and indeed we do not know surely where the city stands, for we were brought in fear and wonder by the high ways of the air, and in mercy our eyes were veiled. Then Torgon granted his prayer, and he said, By the way that you came, you have leave to depart, if Thorondor is willing. I grieve at this parting, yet in a little while, as the Eldar accounted, we may meet again. I like that friendship. I know we don't get a lot of, strong bonds of brotherhood, because most of these characters die very quickly, but I love those moments of, the elves and the humans interacting, and there's not much that's going wrong in that moment. And I find those moments really, really tender in ways that Tolkien doesn't often write. But Maeglin, the king's sister son, meaning nephew, and also you'll remember Maeglin, who is a character that we got an entire chapter of back on chapter 16. He was that son of the dark elf his father tried to kill him, and he was like, I don't really like everyone. He's a little bit of a moody teenager at this point. Not actually, obviously. But he's there basically as like a nephew. But Maeglin, the king's sister son, who was mighty in Gondolin, grieved not at their going, though he begrudged them the favor of the king, for he had no love for any of the kindred of men. And he said to Horan, The king's grace is greater than you know, and the law is become less stern than aforetime. Or else no choice would be given to you, but to abide here to your life's end. So Maeglin's a little bit salty. Angry, I should say. I try not to use slang terms, but Maeglin is a little bit upset here, because Maeglin, as you'll remember in chapter 16, was like, oh my god, this is great. But the reason that there was so much of a problem, and the reason that his mother is dead, is because his father was like, all right, I see that my son and my wife have fled to Gondolin. I'm taking them back. And Torgon says, you can't leave. You can't leave. It's my law. You can't leave. And so Maeglin's father, Eol, tries to kill Maeglin, and his mom jumps in front of the spear that he was holding that was poisoned. And so he loses both his mother and his father. It's kind of like a quick recap of chapter 16, but that is kind of the reason that Maeglin is a little bit angry at Torgon for this. Like, you let them go? Really? And granted, it's a special case. It was a special case. However, it's not quite sitting right with Maeglin. Then Horan answered him, The king's grace is great indeed. But if our word is not enough, then we will swear oaths to you. And the brothers swore never to reveal the counsels of Torgon, and to keep secret all that they had seen in his realm. Then they took their leave, and the eagles coming, bore them away by night, and set them down in Dorloman before the dawn. Their kinsmen rejoiced to see them, for messengers from Brethiel had reported that they were lost, but they would not declare, even to their father, where they had been, save that they had been rescued in the wilderness by the eagles that brought them home. But Galdor said, Did you then dwell a year in the wild, or did the eagles house you in the eyries? But you found food and fine raiment, and return as young princes, not as waifs of the wood. And Horan answered, "Be content that we would have returned, for only under an oath of silence was this permitted." Then Galdor questioned them no more, but he and many others guessed at the truth, and in time the strange fortune of Horan and Huwor reached the ears of the servants of Morgoth. Again, as I've said in the past, Tolkien's subtlety isn't subtle. Now when Turgon learned of the breaking of the leaguer of Angband, he would not suffer any of his people to issue forth to war, for he deemed that Gondolin was strong, and the time was not yet ripe for its revealing. But he believed also that the ending of the siege was the beginning of the downfall of the Noldor, unless aid should come. And he sent companies from the Gondolindrim, which is the people of Gondolin, in secret to the mouths of Sirion and the Isle of Balar. There they built ships and set sail into the uttermost west upon Turgon's errand, seeking for Valinor, to ask pardon and aid of the Valar. And they besought birds of the sea to guide them. But the seas are wild and wide, and the shadow and enchantment lay upon them, and Valinor was hidden. Therefore none of the messengers of Turgon came into the west, and many were lost, and few returned. But the doom of Gondolin drew nearer. Rumors came to Morgoth of these things, and he was unquieted amid his victories, and he desired greatly to learn tidings of Felagund and Turgon, for they had vanished out of knowledge, yet were not dead. And he feared that they might yet accomplish, and feared what they might yet accomplish against him. Of Nargothrond he knew indeed the name, but neither its place nor its strength, and of Gondolin he knew nothing. And the thought of Turgon troubled him more. Therefore he sent forth evermore spies into Valerian, but he recalled the main host of the orcs to Angband, for he perceived that he could not yet make a final and victorious battle until he had gathered new strength, and that he had not measured rightly the valor of the Noldor, nor the might and arms of men that fought beside them. So Morgoth, having this huge victory, didn't quite win fully, and he's like, oh man, these elves, these men, humans, are strong. I gotta be careful. Great though his victory had been in Bregoloc in the years after, grievous the harm he had done to his enemies, his own loss had been no less. And though he held Darthonion and the pass of Sirion, the Eldar, recovered from their first dismay, began to regain what they had lost. Thus Beleriand in the south had a semblance of peace, again, for a few brief years. But the forges of Angband, which is Morgoth's fortress, were full of labor. When 7 years had passed since the fourth battle, Morgoth renewed the assault, and sent a great force against Hithlum. The battle on the passes of the shadowy mountains was bitter, and in the siege of Ethel Sirion, Galdor the Tall, lord of Dorloman, was slain by arrows. That fortress he held on behalf of Fingon, the High King, and in that same place his father, Hador, Lorindal, died but a little time before. Horan, his son, was then newly come to manhood, but he was great in strength, both in body and mind, and he drove the orcs with heavy slaughter from Eredwethrin, and pursued them far across the sands of Anfauglith. But King Fingon was hard put to it to hold back the army of Angband that came down from the north, and the battle was joined upon the very plains of Hithlum. There Fingon was outnumbered, but the ships of Círdan sailed in great strength up the Firth of Drengist, which is a river, and in the hour of need the elves of the Falas came upon the host of Morgoth from the west. Then the orcs broke and fled, and the Eldar had the victory, and their horsed archers pursued them even to the Iron Mountains. Thereafter Hurin, son of Galdor, ruled the house of Hador of Dorloman, and served Fingon. Horan was of less stature than his father, or his sons after him, but he was tireless and enduring in body, lithe and swift after the manner of his mother's kin, Haleth of the Halidin. His wife was Morwen, Eldwin, daughter of Baragund of the house of Beor, she who fled from Dorthonion with Rhine, daughter of Belagund, and Emeldir, the mother of Beren. In that time also, the outlaws of Dorthonion were destroyed, as is told hereafter, and Beren, son of Barahir alone, escaping, came hardly into Doriath. And that is where we will stop for today. Thank you all so much for joining me on YouTube. We begin 2 weeks from now with Chapter 19 of Beren and Luthien, arguably the best chapter of this book, and worthy, in Christopher Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien's son's eyes, to be worthy of an extended edition book. If you are interested after we read this in picking it up, I highly recommend you do. It contains almost all of the drafts and different versions of Beren and Luthien. Sauron is a cat in one of them. Highly recommend it. It is a wonderful book. As a reminder, there will be no stream next Sunday because we are going away for the weekend. But we will be back in 2 weeks with the tale of... Right? Aren't we going?
I'm not planning on going anywhere.
Oh, maybe it is next week. I thought we were doing something next weekend. Hang on. Anyway, bye, YouTube. Thank you. Bye, YouTube. Thanks so much. See you next time. Bye. Just kidding, YouTube. We're back. Next week is the tale of Beren and Luthien. Oh, next week's streams are going to be amazing. Okay, actually, here's a great thing for all of you. If you are interested, next Friday, we are going to be watching the Russian version of The Lord of the Rings. It is subtitled, and it is hilarious. Then next Sunday is going to be the tale of Beren and Luthien. Fair warning, this is going to be potentially a 2.5 hour stream. The Tale of Beren and Luthien is roughly 23 pages long. I feel like I've looked this up like 6 times, so it's like 25 pages long. So yes, we will be watching it on Twitch. If anything weird happens where it might get taken down because of any issues, we will go to the Discord. I will be there. We'll work it out. I have both versions ready to go. But we will start here on Twitch Friday at 7 p.m. to watch the Lord of the Rings Russian version. And then Sunday is going to be the Tale of Beren and Luthien. Highly recommend everyone do that. Anyway, sorry, I got away from me. I thought we were doing something next weekend. My mistake. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. For real this time. Bye. Okay. So, hi, Twitch. Sorry about the confusion. We will be back next week with our Wednesday, Friday, Sunday streams. Our Friday stream is going to be the Russian Lord of the Rings. We won't start exactly at 7. We'll give people some time to get there, set up, whatever they want to do. So yes, next week will be my favorite chapter, and arguably the best, of the Tale of Beren and Luthien. Unfortunately, I do not have time for Mad Libs. Again, maybe we do that along with some other stuff on Wednesday, because that was a lot of fun, and we had a lot of people there, and it was great. We could do that while we do the other thing on Wednesday. We have something else on Wednesday. Well, I'll let you know then on Wednesday. Should we tell them?
Yeah, we can tell them.
Cool. So, Wednesday is going to be... Oh, excuse me. We are part of a Extra Lives charity thing at one of our friendly local game stores, and we bought these mugs and we are going to be painting them next Wednesday. I have the one that is based on the Dungeons and Dragons rogue equipment. There's a couple of knives and lockpick sets and vials. My wife has the wizard's jug, which, as you can see, has a tiny little lizard climbing up of it. So, if you are particularly artsy and feel so inclined, you can paint with us if you so choose.
And what we'll do is...
Yeah, the wife is here to make announcements.
We each have our own extra life through our FLGS, so you can donate to the person who you think is doing better.
Yeah. Don't need the food, River. So, if Risky Parachute says, thanks to the wife for keeping Don on schedule. It literally is the only way I know where my life is. So yes, Wednesday is going to be the painting. Feel free to grab your own paints and paint something along with us. We might do like a Bob Ross style, sort of, maybe play some Mad Libs while we paint. If you cannot make it, we will probably put it up on YouTube as well. I apologize to those that are, yeah, I saw it. Sorry, Sabrina, I did see that. I apologize to those that are maybe a little bit late, either over in Europe. It will be available as a VOD if you would like to watch it. So we've got the painting on Wednesday, the Russian Lord of the Rings on Friday, and Baron and Luthien on Sunday. Look at us planning. Look at me planning ahead. It was mostly her. Will I wear a Bob Ross wig? You know what? No. You know what? If my hair grows out at all this week, I'll just send it in a big puff. For those that don't know, I used to have a very large Bob Ross style hair, like a couple inches. It was fro levels, I think, yeah. Anyway, thank you all for joining me for this wonderful Silmarillion Sunday. This week of streams, this upcoming week of streams, I'm very excited for. It's going to be great. Tell your friends if they feel so inclined. It's just going to be really, really great. And a bunch of new people have joined the Discord, which, did I tell everybody that we went live on Discord today? Yes, I did. Awesome. Thank you. So if you are new here, please come check us out on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern and then Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Okay, I will see you all next time. Thanks, everyone.